Okay, this week we cover two different topics. One of them is just the very basics of research design. What does that mean? The terminology, what I expect from you from a course project on your design methodology. And the second is how to determine sample size. And I will have subsequent videos on sample size and effect size. We can use effect size techniques to determine sample size. So that will be subsequent videos. But this video, we will go into a little bit more detail on what research design is. So if you're going to pursue any science, you need to have a reproducible methodology that is available for other researchers to critique your work. You can't announce a discovery and not have good research design so that people can reproduce this and know what happened. That's the difference between science and magic. Or there's if you can't reproduce it, if someone else can't reproduce it, then it's not very good research. We are certainly looking for the pursuit of truth. It minimizes effort, risk when you have good research design. For companies, for universities, it's part of the process of evaluating, do we want to give funds to your effort? So think of the research design happening before you do the research. You've got to come up with a proposal, and the question is, okay, what are you going to do? What are the resources required? What are the expectations? How are you going to go about doing it? So it is very much a blueprint or a plan that you're going to follow. So the components of your design are certainly a clear statement of your objective. And you can almost think of this as an upside down triangle, where the top of the triangle is a very general statement, a very open-ended, somewhat not clear, but as you funnel this down to a more specific, measurable objective, you can ultimately get to a hypothesis that you can clearly measure or do test against to come up with conclusions. And that this is not a trivial act of moving from a general problem to a very specific hypothesis. It takes some time to determine exactly what we're trying to do. Another part of your design is, where is the data coming from? How was it collected? Did you have any issues when you were collecting the data? What were the instruments of collecting the data? Was the secondary data that was already available in public space on the internet, for example? Or was this primary data that you collected either through a time study or a survey instrument? That is information that you need to know. You need to be able to reproduce your survey for someone to see what questions you ask. We'll talk about types of studies. And you also probably need a budget estimate. If you're doing this, you're going to have to estimate how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. There's different types of studies. There are those very first blush studies, exploratory studies. And a lot of times that happens in a focus group or interviews when you really don't have something measurable and you're trying to get people's ideas. So you'll have a focus group, and maybe it'll be somewhat more qualitative in nature. And then once you use it from the focus group, you can narrow it down to very specific things that you're asking questions or that you're measuring that you can put up against and do a quantitative research study. Where is the research going to happen? Is it a nice, clean environment that you can control, or is it out in the field, or is it something more like a computer simulation study? Is it something that's going to be one in a certain time slice and that's it? Or is it something that you're going to do over a series of time periods and more of a longitudinal study. A longitudinal is when you do the same type of experiment, but you do it on a regular basis, like you do it every academic year or every 6 months. If you're going to really go into a very in-depth, detailed of a specific case, it's a case study type analysis versus masses of amounts of data that you're going to look at and look at it with many observations. And like I said before, some research is very quantitative. You're going to use statistical tests to measure that. But sometimes that doesn't answer what you want. The why part, the why question is sometimes you need to use qualitative research. So what type of research are you doing? Are you doing a qualitative or quantitative analysis? Okay, that's really all I want to go for. You can certainly find other textbooks or other material online, other content to give you more in depth. But when you're designing your proposal and your project, I'm certainly looking for you to discuss these issues. Thank you.